Hello, this is Chipicon, and welcome to Otherworldly. This is the Changing Times, Changing Worlds show, and I have uh, gotten myself. I am very excited to have gotten Gretchen Schork, who is the Reverend Gretchen Schork, who is a polymath. She just does so many things. It's really hard to nail her down to do one thing, but some years ago, uh, I went to a workshop that somebody I didn't know, and she was, uh, and it was really, really cool. I went in there, and there was this upright section of a tree that had been cut into quarters, and she asked a couple of people around the edge of the circle, carry those out to the pedestals outside the circle. And suddenly the entire freaking energy changed, and you could feel it if you have learned how to feel the difference in energy. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is, well, it's what they called, I think, in the Dresden books, uh uh oh no, you help me with this, Star. uh Vending machine magic. If you push the right buttons, the magic works, whether or not you push them intentionally. If you put the right ingredients together, this was just okay. All the work was done beforehand. And so it was really fast, really easy at the moment. But of course, it probably took a whole lot of work beforehand. So I have been fangirling about that for some, yeah, go ahead and laugh, but it's been over 10 years. And so I'm very excited. This year at Changing Times, Changing Worlds, she was actually selling kits where you could get a much smaller section of log that had been quartered for you, and you could go home and fix it yourself. And it came with this, I got that there, booklet explaining how to do the thing. But I figured, see, there's that image of, and so anyway, it's got the how-to, but I carefully put the wood away so I could use it when I had the time to dedicate the energy to it, and I can't find it anywhere. So that means I'm human. So anyway, but we have Gretchen here to talk about it and explain about it. And as long as I've got her here, I also wanted to talk about shielding. Which would you prefer to cover first, Gretchen?
Well, I'll kind of cover both.
Yeah, well, yeah, I
They
think we can
kind of
fit
sort of
both
go
in.
together.
But and so let's just go for go for the what the advertised topic, and then we'll get to the other tied in topic.
Sounds perfect. Okay, so here's my experience. First of all, I am neither Wiccan nor pagan. I fall under the pagan category simply by default because it's closer to whatever it is that I am, or whatever. So I'm a very non-denominational person. And I was going to Wiccan style services or circles. And every time people would go to the quarters and they would take their athame. I'm going to use a pen for this because I can't find a knife around here. Oh, I know. An artist's athame. The exacto blade. So they go to the direction and they call the quarter. Frequently they call a guardian, and they're going like this. Welcome to my circle. Poke, poke, poke. Well, now, see, I was raised to be polite to everybody. If you're polite, they don't notice when you slip in a barb. But you be polite, especially if you don't know the being the person, the being, personally. You treat them very politely and formally because they're more likely to cooperate with you and be interested in you. But if you take a blade and point it at them, it's like, I have a problem with that. And I had occasion to, I said, okay, fine. I'm going to do this little circle for a small group of my friends. And okay, I need to do something about that dagger thing. Oh, no, a thame thing, pardon me. And I took a piece of wood that it was a branch. It was about this long and it was about this big around. And I handed it to my husband, who is the designated saw user in the house. Although I can use the saws, I prefer for it when he does it. So I said, could you cut this into 4 pieces for me? And I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So I go about my business. A little while later, he comes back upstairs and he says, here, I cut your wood for you. And he hands me something that's like that.
There it is.
It's like, but wait, no, wait. Whoa, okay. Because now I take my tree, because it is a branch of a tree. I'm going to show you with this set because this is kind of cool. And when I go to that corner, I'm going to go to the east and I'm going to say, welcome to my circle. You see, I have the air symbol on there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, there you go.
Yep, beautiful.
And I can either hold it this way or I can hold it this way. In either case, that is very close to being some sort of universal sign of non-threatening, friendly, or at least polite greeting. Then I go to the south, and I've got one that's got, and then I go to the west, and then I go to the, or excuse me, to the that's the north. No, that's the west, and then I go to the south. Okay. I have now gone and I have placed each of the quarters. I'm going to show you this in just a second here. I've put each of the quarters
we can see that.
There we go. Each of the quarters is now in a quarter. Can you see that?
I think we can see it. Can the other people see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have placed these. Now I could also take it and lay it in the quarter like this, as if I were building a building. So I have 2 different ways that I can designate the space as being magical. I now have, oh, hang on a second, this silly phone. It's doing what my fingers are telling it to instead of what I want it to do. I have now established a magical space. It is anchored with the wood. Okay, that's an interesting detail because we sometimes forget that it's really cool if you can anchor your magic, especially your temporary magic, by using something physical that's going to literally hold it in place, and something that symbolizes what it is that you're doing with the energy. Now, in some traditions, you create a shrine at each of the 4 quarters. Okay, in magical terms, in ceremonial magical terms, you establish a throne for the element to sit upon, which keeps them in one place in your temple, so they're not wandering all over the place. They are in position. If you're drawing a pentacle in each quarter, you are still creating a throne for them to sit on. However, you are not creating it physically, you're creating it astrally with the pentacle. But in this case, it's especially useful for work with groups. So everybody is focusing the same thing, for beginners who can use that physical presence to carry the symbolism for them as a designation to remind people where the boundary is, so that they don't start stumbling out of it. They can see where it is. There are many, many different reasons for using it. Now, one of the reasons that I came up with additional material to talk to you about tonight is because when Chipacon asked me to talk about the quarter wands, I don't think she realized how quick the talk is, because this tool is intended for use however you make circles. So you adapt it into your use. All I'm doing is providing a bunch of blanks that you can then fill in. You can do it with a design. You can do it with a drawing. You can do it with, like I had on this one set, with magic markers, mind you. You can do it with wood burning. You can carve it, whatever appeals to you. One thing I strongly recommend is that you check that your set has markings at the end, 1, 2, 3, and 4, because otherwise you'll spend some time trying to figure out which one goes next to what. Having the marking on one end tells you which end is up or down, and they all end up in the same direction, which makes it a lot easier to put them back together again. Most of the sets that I have, that I had at the event, had their natural bark on them. They did not have finish on them because they weren't old enough yet. They had not dried out. This set is one that I'm making for myself. The bark started coming off because of the wood that it was made of. And I have opted to make this a personal set that is going to possibly have designs on the outside, definitely designs on the inside. And then I have to go with it a small set that matches it, that I can throw in a purse or a pocket and carry with me. Think of the possibilities. You're carrying your magic space with you. You could make it half that long, and it becomes a wonderful transportable tool. The ones that I have are either made out of linden or yew. There's a very simple reason. In front of my house, I have a linden tree. In 2006, we had something that was termed Arborgeddon. It was the October surprise storm, and it took out 13 full-grown, mature linden trees down the block that I live on, and they were cut down to the ground, and I wept. It was traumatic. But I took as much of the wood as I could from my tree, and I seasoned it and got it ready, and I've made quite a few sets out of that linden wood. In addition, last winter, we had a brutal 3-day blizzard. It brought the 2-story tall yew trees down so that their tips were on the ground. And I waited until June, and they still had not straightened out. Normally, yew will straighten out within 2 months. They were not straightening out. So everybody, neighbors and family, all agreed that the only cure was a Sawzall. And so I ended up with a front yard full of wood. And of course, that meant that I was going to harvest all kinds of sets. I've got about 100 sets that are in one stage or another of being completed. They have a nice rough texture. They have the yellowish, reddish core, which is why they were sometimes called the tree Yggdrasil, because if you cut it and the sap runs, it looks like it's bleeding. It has red sap. So the significant personalized elements are the design, the wood, and the type of finish. You can use tung oil. especially on the inside, that gives a finish that's shiny like furniture, because that's what tung oil is what they use on fine furniture. Or alternatively, you can use linseed oil, which comes from the flax plant, which is a plant that is sacred to Frigga, the goddess of the hearth and home in the northern traditions. Or you can use polyurethane if you are firmly rooted in the 21st century and just want it to look nice and be simple. Those are your variables. And you adapt whichever of the variables is right for you. What I have given the design of the quarter wands to everybody. The idea is out there. If you have the right bandsaw, go for it. Make it your own. Use the wood that has meaning to you or that you have accessibility to. Use whatever you have available. The booklet, the only reason I ask for any money for that when I sell it is because, well, I had to pay to print it.
Yep.
And my writing is something that I'm an author. So in fairness to other authors, I like to, but the wood I sell because I have crafted it. I have collected it, dried it, cut it, sanded it. So now that is the sum total of the highlighted part of this talk. So if you have any questions about the quarter wands, now would be the time to ask them.
Well, Gretchen, obviously you had pretty compelling reasons to use linden and yew. Now, if you don't have those, which we don't in our neighborhood, what woods would be appropriate, or does it even matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I have used wood from a magnolia tree. Magnolia gives us the idea of grace and the Old South. I have a preference personally for maple because I grew up with maple furniture in my bedroom, and maple has always been my friend. You can use sumac, except that it does have a residual aroma that most people can't stand. They call it a stink. I've had one or two people get absolutely ecstatic that I had something available in a sumac. So no, the wood is the importance of the wood is A, availability to you, and B, your preferences, and C, your associations with the wood. Any wood.
Well, certainly when I lived in New England, in fact, the same town that Chippewa does, maples, sugar maples. That was a hot topic. Those trees somehow, to me, were more alive than other trees because you could get food from them without having to cut them down and chew very hard. So,
right.
So
now,
that would be my thought.
One of the reasons that we put up a circle around our work in the first place is for protection. We have a sense of wanting to establish a perimeter to work within. And that perimeter is intended not to be walked through in either direction. You don't want somebody coming in and barging in, and you don't want to end up walking out of it. I don't permit cutting in and out of my magical spaces. That's the way I was trained. I know that if you have a dog or cat or a child present, you might have to change that rule, but I don't. My cat doesn't do that, and I don't have dogs, and children do not come into my house because they think that it's a scary place. But at any rate, so
congratulations.
Yeah.
Lucky you. Yeah.
Our house is the house of dead things, so children don't generally come here. But protection. Every single day, I shield first myself, then my property and household, then my family and friends. Well, for them, it's mostly a blessing, but it works like a shielding. And that is done every day. This property is shielded every day. with the strongest energy I can put into it. It only takes me a few moments, but I shield it every single day. And as you may have heard, Buffalo was hit with a windstorm where we had gusts up to 65 miles an hour, and it was pretty ugly. And I was wondering what that strange sound was. Our house had turned into a drum. I went outside and looked, and I had a tree that was about 4 feet out from the wall of the house, and it was thumping the house. It had died because of the ash borer beetle, which decimated the ash in our neighborhood. And it had already lost its bark, and it had begun cracking and so on. So it was thumping against the house, which I thought was relatively unpleasant and worrying. And then the wind went away and life was good for 2 days. And then we had another snowstorm. This time the wind went to 75 miles an hour. And then I noticed that the house wasn't thumping anymore. So I went outside and looked, and sure enough, that tree had cracked straight across the base of the tree, straight across, to the point where the base was no longer on the ground, because the whole tree had tipped over and was completely supported by my next door neighbor's roof. Mind you, I took a little damage at the very end of the high part of the gutter that was in the corner where that tree was. The entire damage of the tree falling went to the neighbor. It's my neighbor's home equity company that's going to have to take care of removing it. Okay, I feel a little guilty about all that, but that's just me. Why do I bring this up? I have this very peculiar feeling that the shields may have influenced that tree's choice of direction in which to fall. It did not pull down any wires. It damaged her eaves. It did not pierce anything, neither roof nor wall nor window. And it's just sitting there, making a bloody mess, but it's just sitting there. Do shields work? I believe they do, in odd ways. And the reason that you do regular shielding on a regular basis is because you never know what kind of shield you need, when you will need it, or how much of a shield you will need. A lot of people that teach shielding will teach you, well, when this happens, you should shield with this. When that is coming at you, you should shield with that. And I'm thinking to myself, something's coming at me. How do I have time to figure that out? That makes no sense. So I use shielding that was inspired by Denning and Phillips as they teach it in their Aurum Solis curriculums. It's called the Tower of Light. You put a circle of energy around you and you twirl it clockwise. And then around that, you put another one going counterclockwise. So the two shields keep shearing against each other. So any energy that's trying to come through them is first being sheared this way and then sheared that way. Okay, so what gets at you is a twinkle that says, yo, something's going on over here. Then you reach out to the universal source of all light and life, to the highest source that you work with, and you draw that down and fill that space with its universal ultimate energy. I think of it as the diamond light, which means that it sparkles like a diamond and has every color of the rainbow plus a couple more that's in it, so it protects against everything. I fill it up, jam pack it in there, and then I solidify and harden the outer edge. I do that personally, and then I can also do it on a space. It's very effective. The only thing it doesn't do, the thing that I don't like about it, is that it does not specify zenith and nadir, which in most instances doesn't matter, but in a general sense, it feels a whole lot better if that tin can has a top and bottom, because it does resemble a can inside of a can.
Mm.
One of the reasons I like this shielding so much is that it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever what's coming at you. You can see it, you can sense it, you can understand what's around you, but it's not reaching in and diddling with your brain. It's held out here at a distance. You're in here and it's out there. I've had people who do readings, tarot readings, say, oh, but it's going to interfere with my reading the energies. No, if it's a problem, then you're doing it wrong. What happens is, by putting up a shield when you're doing a reading, you are preventing the subject of your reading from influencing you. You can see them and their state and their situation, but it's not coming at you to become part of you. It's held out there. So you can look at it and read it better. So you're going to give them the reading that they asked for, not the reading that they hope for.
Okay.
So that's how I explain it to tarot readers. Why should we shield now? This world of ours, especially in this country, is cockamamie chaos all the time right now. Things are very much in flux. There's craziness all around us. There's stupid ass people out there doing idiotic things that have an effect on other people. If you walk around unshielded, then their craziness is the ambience in which you are working and trying to make a rational decision about what to do next in your life. But if you walk around with a shield around you, you can see everything that's happening, but it's not in there pounding away at you. It's pounding at your shield. And because you use that generic shield that I've mentioned, it's going to shield you from all the energies, whether it's planetary or crazy people or idiotic situations or what it is. It's going to help to shield you. And as someone posted there, it's going to protect you against a tree in the wind, the same as it's going to protect you in a case of somebody coming at you with a weapon or with a weaponized idea. Works better with the non-physical things, but hey, whatever you need at the moment. Will it save you from a physical attack? It's like having your vaccines in place. The COVID vaccine is not intended to keep you from getting sick. It is intended to keep you from going in the hospital and being ventilated and keeping you alive. So the vaccine will bring down the damage that you take from being exposed to the COVID. It doesn't prevent it necessarily, but it does bring down the effect to a more manageable level. Same thing with shields. They don't stop the craziness from happening, but they bring it down in your eyes so that you can see what's going on and you can have a less reactionary response. Now, I use the generic one because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to figure out what I'm likely to face each day. It's also a very high-powered shield. The way the Denning and Phillips explanation goes, it's a 12-hour shield. It lasts from one tide to the next. So you're supposed to do it twice a day. Okay, I'll buy that for $1. I will tell you that for about 20, 25 years, I did that shielding twice a day, every day, without fail. Then I did breast cancer and chemo, and I lost my brain. More specifically, my executive brain went on a vacation and forgot to tell me where it was going. Everything is fine now, by the way. But during that period, it was like, what? Shield? I think I know what that means. Okay, so I wasn't shielding. After I came back from the chemo, about a year and a half later, I was at an event where somebody was giving a workshop on shielding, and they were talking about, well, use this shield when somebody throws earth at you, and this shield when they throw water at you, and so on and so on. I was just sitting there thinking, okay. At the end, they said, now we're going to douse you. We want to volunteer, and we're going to douse your shields to see how strong they are and how far out from you they are projected. And they said, anybody want to volunteer? I'm sitting at the back because I'm being a smartass inside my head. And I wait for them to, nobody volunteers. So I said, oh, okay, I'll volunteer. So the guy says, okay, what I want you to do is to drop your shields. And I said, He said, so drop them. I said, I just did. Oh, okay, so we'll take a baseline reading with the shields down. I said, okay. So he did. And he had to back up about 15 feet. And then he said, okay, now put your shields up. And then okay. And so I put them up and we'll test how much better they are. I said, so put your shields up. They already are. Oh, okay. So I will measure to see how far, and he goes 20 feet out. He goes 20, 25 feet away from me, and he's still not at the edge. He's still getting the resistance. It's a little wonky, it's a little spongy, but he's still getting it, and he's backing up and backing up. He finally calls it quits, and after the workshop, he came up to me and he said, so what's going on? So, well, first of all, you have to understand that as a school teacher, I automatically fill the entire room with my shields. Because anything happens in that room, I'm the one that is responsible. I'm in loco parentis. I am the adult in the room. In the second place, if you can't put up your shields that fast, they're useless.
Yeah.
If I have to figure out what shield to use, I'm probably going to be flat on my back, wondering what universe I'm in before I'll come up with the answer to what I should put up. But because I put up this solid, and he said, well, how come that it goes out so far now? I said, well, probably, let's think about this. Probably because when I build my shield, I put it here. And in order to put a new shield, I have to put it inside of what's already there. So I am constantly putting new shields, pushing the old one further out and out. So if you attack me, if something comes at me, if an energy is coming in my direction, it's got to go through all the mushy, old, worn out remnants first. And if it gets through all of that, then it's still going to have to get through the ones that are closer. So I was thinking, yeah, right. Okay, whatever. Until he then said, now I want to tell you something that I found in your aura that you ought to know about. And he described a hole in my aura in exactly the place that I had had surgery a year and a half prior. And I said, okay, that makes sense. And it will be taken care of. But that makes perfectly good sense. And the fact that he identified that without knowing any of my recent history told me that he was not full of jelly beans in his brain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do I do with shielding? I do it every day. Now I do it once a day, but it's a little bit stronger. And when I walk down the sidewalk, I am fully shielded. If I feel threatened, I'll throw up a little extra shielding, but for the most part, I don't even think about it anymore. Yeah. If I don't act like an idiot, I have a reasonable chance of walking straight through any problems that I encounter, and I keep going.
Gretchen, I'd like to throw in another story here, mainly because I think multiple stories are good.
Absolutely.
For breaking down the having the suspension of disbelief for people who are like, I like the idea of magic. When I was teaching Runewalder, my very first year, when it had just been invented, and basically consists of taking runic energies and putting push buttons in your energy field so that you can instantly access them. So you can use it immediately because you got the buttons put in there, but you really need to learn the runes to direct them properly. And a lady came to me one day and said, yesterday you taught me to do this, but I don't know the runes yet. But I got a call from home, and she lived in Florida, and this in Penzic is in Pennsylvania in August. So of course, tornado season. I'm not, well, yeah, that too, but the hurricane season in Florida. And she said, I didn't know what to do, but I do know how to douse. And so I took the sheet where you had the list of the runes, and I dowsed which runes should I use. And she said, and I want to know if I picked the right runes, because I don't know what they mean. And the two she had picked were the two protection runes, Algi's, and Othala, the home, because of course you don't hear that there's a hurricane headed toward your house and go there. you wait till the hurricane is past, and then you pack up your camp and get down and start putting tarps on the roof. And so the next morning, when the hurricane had gone through, she called her next door neighbor, and the next door neighbor said, did answer the phone, and she said, how's my house? And the neighbor said, the hurricane went right down, the center of the hurricane went right down our street.
Oh, geez.
And yours is the only house that had no damage. You had a tree fall in the backyard, but it didn't hit anything. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go deal with my problems. And that is what you can do with shielding, with, in this case, Runewalder, even when you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So, and there are many other examples. Starwolf, do you have any other examples of successful shielding that you've used?
Let's see. Not so much successful, but one time we were able to tell we had to have some work done on the foundation, and one of the outer, because this house has basically multiple layers of shield. We could tell that they disrupted one of the outer, as it were, repeaters, because that's how I see it. They basically, I set it up that you don't have to constantly maintain the warding on this property. It's basically anchored in place with various things. But they had managed to shift one of the stacks of quartz and pyrite that are around the outer corners of the house out of alignment. And we could tell because it was like having a leaky window on a cold, windy day.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
the more you use energy, the easier it becomes to feel it.
Yeah.
I've added a few things to it because one of the things we did when I got my inheritance was we bought a few expensive metaphysical items, included rather large tachyon cells that are now, well, let's just say there is now, in addition to the magical shields, there is now a dome of tachyon energy surrounding the building, so shields up literally.
I have a friend who has unfortunately passed that did such a good job of shielding because she had a crack house next to her house.
Oh,
and
oh no, she wasn't the crack house.
Oh, no,
it was next to her. Okay. Okay.
And we went to visit her, and we had not been to that house yet. And we walked past that house 3 times before we could figure out where it was.
Mm.
She had shielded so well it no longer seemed to exist. It was totally invisible. And it was dead smack in the heart of Buffalo. It was really hilarious. When I first began teaching, I had students that one of them was a natural berserker and the other one was hot-headed, and they had it in for each other. And I was in a classroom that had metal stools, art room, metal stools. And the one kid picked up the metal stool and was going to bring it down on the head of the other student. At this point, I had for several years been doing a simple, very Christian protection thing that I didn't really know anything about shielding, but it was useful. May the white light of Christ consciousness surround me, or something like that. And I got between the two of them, and I swung my arm, saying to myself, "Oh no, you don't! Not in my room. No physical harm." That stool hit my arm and bounced off simultaneously. Some of the kids told me later in private, very sheepishly, that they had seen a flash of energy. I sensed it, but I didn't see it because I don't see those things. And now I understand that I bruise if you sneeze in the wrong direction toward me.
Mm-hmm.
I never had a bruise from that impact. She was bringing it down. My arm was sweeping up. The chair went flying, and I never got even the slightest sign of a bruise. I didn't protect myself. I think that shield protected me. And that was in my ignorance. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to do something when I was crossing the picket line because I was at a school in the steel belt of Buffalo. So the other teachers did not take kindly to my crossing the picket line. So I was in physical danger every time that I went into the building. So that is some of the things that have happened to me with shielding where it has come into play. And each time it seems to be on the physical level, which is, I find, hilarious because they're supposed to work on the non-physical too. And they may work and I just don't know it. I am not particularly alert to non-physical threats. Very interestingly, I'll throw this out there because I found this very interesting. I went to one of Raven Caldera's workshops, and he explained that there are a certain percentage of the human race that is going to be able to hear the gods, etc., and other spirits. And that the rest of the people, some can hear them, some can learn to hear them, and some can beat their heads against a brick wall and it'll never happen. Hello, that's me. I get intuitive insight, but I don't ever have a sense of an external anything. But he said his final conclusion on that was to say that that's why ceremonial magic exists. So that those who don't have the senses for perceiving the spirits have a structure within which they can still work and contribute to the overall wellness of society through their use of magic. This fits very nicely with how I have always practiced. I practice ceremonial magic. I assume that what I'm doing works. I very rarely have a sense of the non-physical effects of what I do, but I know when I did it right and when I did it wrong. All I can say is it works. Now, it may be that I am simply using an active form of psychology on myself, and I really don't give a hootenanny. The reason is because whatever helps at whatever level, I'm going to bring it to bear on what I'm dealing with. If shielding makes me feel more confident, and that sense of confidence is what shields off people from doing stupid ass bullshit nonsense in my immediate vicinity, hey, I don't care if it's magic or if it's just my sense of confidence. The fact of the matter is it works. So to some extent, I'm building my own self to present to the world in such a way that I am more likely to get back the response that I'm looking for. I can deal with that. I don't have to have it be fireballs and magic. I'll take it, however it comes. And if the science of doing this technique pushes this button and that technique, which pushes that button, and it gets me the results I need, I'm happy. Going back to the use of runes, there is a short form, not of shielding so much as of an instant magical circle. The alphabet about me, see, because I work with the English alphabet, the alphabet about me the 7 rays through me, now I am complete. Real short, real sweet, easy. It creates a circle big enough for me to work in, which is basically an extension of my aura. So there are different ways of doing it. There are different formulas. There are different types. If you do know what you're dealing with, you can design a shield specifically for that, but it's only going to work for that. So don't put all of your eggs in that one basket. Be willing to share them. I do believe we have more time, right?
We have a little more time. Does anybody got questions before we run off in another direction? Probably a minor tangent, but I don't see any hands.
Okay. So the other thing that I was going to add in is a little bit of information about Maker's Magic.
Maker's Magic.
Maker's Magic. The reason that these work so well for people when they first grab a hold of them and use them is because the form follows the function. The function resides in the form. But it's also because the Maker's Magic is in them. And as long as they are complete, or more or less complete, that magic will remain within them. This is something I deal with so much all the time, began working with before I had a clue about magic. This is what the artist and the craftsman work with. Sometimes they're aware of it. Most of the time they're not. If you have a well-made object, then the Maker's Magic is in that item. That is the base level below which you can never banish the energy of that item. I have a creative mind that drives me crazy sometimes. I see something and I start looking at ways to use it. Aeons ago, when Pier 1 first started hanging out in our city, I found wooden acorns.
Cute.
I got a set of them and made acorn runes.
Okay. If you wanted to sell them, I dare say you could also do some with the ohm on it.
There's all kinds of things.
Celtic people.
But the first thing I start doing is thinking about what I can do with something. So normally when I get a magic item, I have to store it somehow. So in this case, it's a bracelet beaded, okay, on a piece of fabric that I've had laying around for 30 years. Fur from 1979 and this little box. And that makes a nice little way of storing it. But normally this is unusual.
Could you show the bracelet again?
Sure.
Because I love that bracelet.
It has labradorite in the middle and a rutilated quartz on one side and a tourmalated quartz on the other. The use of this is in ritual, particularly with the public, where you're going someplace and you want to make sure that you're going to get everybody back home again. And I tell them ahead of time, if you have any trouble getting back home, just let me know. I'll put your hand on the bracelet and it will bring you back. And I say this a number of different times. I'm building up in their mind the fact that they have a safety valve. So I was at a ritual once where I was asked to make sure that the priest and 2 priestesses would get back safely from doing a transpossession. Then I found out that the priest, being an absolute idiot that I wanted to slap upside the head, and who knew better, he definitely knew better, had decided to invoke 2 different aspects of the same being.
What do you mean, like Odin and Woden?
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he got special treatment, let me tell you. So they did their thing and their ritual, and and I told everybody, if any of you feel like you're being taken by spirit, you can use this bracelet. Just put your hand on it. I don't even have to pay attention. Just put your hand on the bracelet. It'll bring you back. So when the three of them leave the ritual, they have to bring themselves back. They bring themselves as far back as they can. And then I take the one priestess, put her hand on my wrist, and I can tell, okay, she's back behind her eyes. Do the other one. Okay, she's back. Do the priest. Okay, he's not quite back yet. Yeah, he's going to have to do this twice. So then I made him do it again. Then he was back. And I said, okay, now tell me what that felt like. And they said, it's like being on a fast elevator. It didn't snap them back, but it brought them back immediately and all the way back. So that's the function of that bracelet. I had it with me the entire time during Changing Worlds, because once before I had been at your event and somebody had some trouble getting back from a ritual experience in a workshop that I wasn't at. And if I had the bracelet, put his hand on that bracelet and it would have been taken care of.
Yeah.
So in those kinds of circumstances, especially at events, I'm always going to have that bracelet with me. It's
good
just
tool.
So then when I retired, the first thing I did was decide that I needed a stole because I'm a priestess. And because I'm me, I couldn't stand the idea of having a plain old fabric stole. So I beaded one.
Of course you can.
The whole thing is beaded.
And I see the alphabet power all over it.
Yes, it's the alphabet. But now here's my problem, because now I've got to have someplace to store it. So I found an appropriate sized box, and it got wood burned with the alphabet and around the edges.
Okay.
Then the next magical item I had to store, I said, well, I can't do wood burning because that's just boring. Can't do the same thing over and over again. So this time I did a little bit of carving and thought that was a little too plain. So then I got the beads and the glue. Those are all seed beads.
Okay.
Glued on, and that is carved in. So it's holes. And then I put black velvet behind it.
Nice.
Okay. So what's happening here is that I'm driven to apply artistry to anything that has importance. And I don't know ahead of time how I'm going to do it. And I don't know what it's going to end up being. I recently posted pictures of a big Egyptian mural on ceramic tiles. That's acrylic paint. Let's see if I can get it without the glare. There you go.
There you go.
And it has on the whole thing, it has 8 different Egyptian gods. And then after I painted them, I put an acrylic sealer over it that I got at the art store. The rest is just craft paint. And I just couldn't stand the idea of these tiles. I saw these tiles at Lowe's, and it's like, they got all these tiles and they're wonderful. And they're just, I got to do something with them. They got to come home with me. How many do I need?
It must be mine.
Yes. And then they weren't quite long enough to put the boat part on. So I had these left from when we had the bathtub surround replaced. But then after I got everything all painted, I found out that they are on a different scale.
Oops.
So they didn't fit anymore. Son of a. I swore
Have you
a bit.
ever had one of those moments where you finished something and it was, now what the hell did I just make? And you could go to somebody else to figure it out what you just finished?
Yeah. The tiles are going to be mounted on a piece of plywood, which we already have set up with the meaning of the different symbols written on the back. I haven't gotten it glued down yet. That will be happening in the next couple of days. And someone asked me, I think Chipicon asked me this, why? What are you using it for?
Yeah.
Highly valid question, and one that I would ask myself. The problem is I have no answer.
Oh, I know this one from the from the Van Helsing movie, where Carl says,
Yeah.
I know what it does, I don't know what it's for.
Right.
Yep.
I started the project because I got caught into a corner where I felt that I had to make a promise to these 8 gods that I would honor them in some way. And the best way was by making a wall plaque. Except this thing is going to weigh like 2.5 tons. Because there are 7 of those big tiles and then a double row of smaller tiles.
Maybe 100 pounds.
Yeah. So
Strong guys will be able to shift it.
I don't know why I had to make it. But at some point within the next 5 years, there will come a moment where I will look and say, that's what I needed. And I will not have time to make it then. So it's already made. I started doing that with a shirt to wear for magical garb. It was black fabric, glass beaded, with a dragonfly that goes from elbow to elbow. And the body of the dragonfly goes down my spine. Okay, fine. And then I figured that what was going to happen is all that weight was going to pull the shirt so that it strangled me.
Probably.
And I have 2 totems. One is the dragonfly. The other is the snowy owl. So, okay, I know what to do. So I'm going to put a snowy owl on the front. So I got iridescent snowy owl white beads. And I used elbow to elbow an owl with wings outstretched and one claw held forward holding something, and a look in his eyes like he's going to peck out your eyes and eat them for lunch. And I got the whole thing finished, and then I said, okay. And I put it on a hanger, and I put it in my bedroom closet because it's like, well, that was nice. And then I had to do a ritual for which this was the exact right outfit. Just a pair of black pants and this shirt would do the whole thing. Perfect. There's no way in the world I could have done that shirt when I needed it because it had 100 or more hours in it, at least. All bead embroidered. It was just phenomenal. I needed it, and I needed it for one bloody ritual.
You may use it again.
No, I cut it up and I gave the front and the back to 2 different people for banners.
Oh.
Mm.
Oh, you knew internally that had fulfilled its purpose.
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's how these things work sometimes. I mean, you get this compulsion to make something, and then after it's all done and you've used it for what you thought you were going to use it for, assuming you knew what you were going to use it for or found out what you were going to use it for, then you have to figure out what to do with it.
Secret. If you know anybody that is an artist, and with most craftsmen as well, you know how sometimes there's craftspeople and artists that just keep trying to give their things away or sell them or do something to get them out the door. It's like, get out of here. Go. Take it away. You know why? We need room for the next project.
Well,
Yeah.
that's where SCA merchants came from. It's, I need. It's like I got to get that. I've already given everything to my friends. They'll take. Let's see if I can get them into strangers' hands, and buy more materials and buy new tools.
Right. I have talked a local store into having a magical flea market sometime over the summer.
Nice.
So
cool.
those of us who have acquired way too many toys can begin to dispose of them in a constructive way.
If only you were to 10-hour trip each way.
Pardon?
If only you were to 10-hour trip each way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I once, after 9/11, I felt compelled to compelled to learn how to solder, how to cut copper pipe, and I built a sculpture some 5 feet tall of the Twin Towers on like a 4x8 base feet. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and I didn't know where it was going to wind up. And eventually we took the pipe apart and the rest of it just kind of rotted in our yard.
Yeah, it was a stunning piece. By the way, Feather's my wife, and she is a stunning artist. And I remember how imposing this piece was. This skeleton, because I taught her how to sweat solder, and she learned very well. And she built this thing. And like I say, the base is all black and ripply. And she titled it, what was it? Atlas Pierced was the name of it. And I remember we did take it apart. We took the long pieces out, and then she resoldered all the little nipples and elbows into what turned out to be a splendid holder for glass flowers we got at Corning. So there is, there's this process. And I remember it sat in didn't it sit in the front of the bead store for a while?
We had it in the windows of the bead store at the anniversary.
Yeah.
It occurs to me, I just looked at the clock, and it is time for us to it's time for us to say goodbye.
Yep.
We have indeed, as I said, covered a lot of things that that we might not have otherwise covered. And but I am very, very glad. It occurs to me, I have put into the chat, if anybody wants to save the chat, there's 3 dots at the bottom of it, and you can save that. And I put in links to 2 other otherworldlies that that Gretchen has been done. And I will have to, I know you've already done it at Changing Times, Changing Worlds, but maybe because we sometimes have slightly different audience, we could get you to come back and talk about the alphabet, because I am thrilled that that the alphabet is something that, and I'm going to, that you have made it as magical as it has the potential for being. I'm going to mention that we got next week. I've got Alicia Leon Fulberth talking about the temple that I didn't write down that she runs in Connecticut, and then the week after that, the last day of January, we've got Sarah Mastros talking about her book on the Sorcery of Solomon. Should be fun, and I shall continue to look for speakers of fun and interest for everybody. But the time has come to say goodnight for tonight. Save the